A list starlet Chloe got into a car accident, and my husband was the one who carried her into the hospital. She suffered severe uterine trauma and would likely either become infertile or bleed to death. She demanded that I be the one to perform her surgery, threatening to just lie there and die in agony otherwise. In my past life, even though I knew she and my husband were sleeping together, I still upheld my duty as a doctor and took the case. The surgery was a success. Afterward, however, she constantly complained of abdominal pain and launched a smear campaign against me online, calling me unprofessional. It cost me my job, got me disowned by my family, and ultimately led me to slit my wrists in a bout of depression. And she danced on my grave and started a public relationship with my husband. This time around, looking at the woman before me, I pointed to another operating room where a different patient was waiting. This surgery is just as critical. You'll have to find another surgeon. Her procedure was extremely high risk. Now she could either transfer to another hospital or stay here and wait to die. Doctor, please, you have to save her. She's so young, she can't lose her uterus. My husband, Mark, looked frantic as he carried a blood-soaked Chloe into the hospital. Anyone who didn't know better would have thought he was holding his wife. But I'm Mark's wife, a doctor at this very hospital and the protege of a legendary gynecological surgeon. My mentor retired last month. When it comes to GYN surgery, I'm the top authority here now. Mark had picked me up from the hospital several times before, so my colleagues all recognized him. That's why as soon as they arrived, a colleague who couldn't stand the sight of it secretly sent a video to my phone. She also added, the woman was grabbing his hand, calling him honey, and begging him to save her. You should probably brace yourself. Even though I'd already been through this once in my past life, my eyes still welled up at my colleague's well-intentioned warning. Last time, when Chloe falsely accused me of malpractice fueled by personal grudges, these same colleagues had spoken up for me. But the online mob was too big, and their supportive comments were quickly buried. I quickly thanked her. Thanks for looking out for me. My colleague glanced toward the ER and said urgently, oh no, it looks like they're transferring her to your department. If it's GYN surgery, the case might land on your desk. They're getting on the elevator. You should probably make yourself scarce. She was worried that a sudden confrontation with that trashy pair would make me do something rash and jeopardize my promotion. I frowned slightly. The elevator doors opened, and the patient being wheeled out was Chloe, with my frantic husband, Mark, right beside her. The moment he looked up and saw me, he instinctively dropped his gaze. But Chloe, lying on the stretcher, suddenly sat up. Ignoring the crowd of doctors and nurses rushing toward her, she pointed straight at me. I heard she's the protege of the best GYN surgeon. I want her to do my surgery, personally. News of Chloe's car accident was already all over the internet. A video of her being brought to our hospital by ambulance had been filmed and posted online. The entire web was watching this surgery now. Our hospital's reputation was on the line. When the associate director arrived and heard her demand, he immediately looked at me. Dr. Evans, since Miss Chloe trusts you so much, why don't you handle her surgery personally? In my previous life, I was about to be promoted to department head. If Chloe hadn't started those rumors and smeared my name online, I would have had that title long ago. This associate director was also instrumental in my downfall. He wanted the promotion to go to Dr. Nina Rogers in my department, so he deliberately deleted the surveillance footage from that day, leaving me with no way to defend myself. He was saying this now because he knew how dangerous this surgery was. If I refused and Chloe wouldn't transfer, the case would fall to Nina. But Nina was careless and had already made several minor mistakes during procedures. He was afraid Nina would botch the surgery and cause a major incident, so it was best to toss this hot potato to me. Too bad for him, his plan wasn't going to work. I pointed to the adjacent operating room. I have a surgery at 10:30. The patient is being prepped for an emergency ectopic pregnancy and is in critical condition. I can't perform 2 surgeries at once. You'll have to find someone else. I recommend a transfer. In my past life, because I was forced to take Chloe's case, that ectopic pregnancy patient collapsed in the clinic lobby. Nina had no choice but to take the surgery. But the patient suffered a massive hemorrhage on the operating table and died. She was a 25-year-old woman in the prime of her life. Her husband, who was reportedly in the military, rushed over only to find her body already in the morgue. I had always regretted that outcome. This time, the first thing I did was run to the clinic lobby an hour ago, find her, and arrange for her immediate admission and surgery. I was confident I could save her, and I wanted to. Saving her was infinitely better than saving an ungrateful snake like Chloe. Hearing this, Chloe, wincing in pain on the gurney, yelled at me, "No, get another doctor for her. I want you and I want the surgery now." She knew damn well that my skills were her best chance of walking out of that or safely. She didn't just want my husband, she wanted my expertise too. Besides, she was certain I'd never risk my career by sabotaging her surgery. It would mean throwing away years of hard work. I scoffed. On what grounds? Your life is a life, but someone else's isn't? The ectopic pregnancy patient is already showing signs of major bleeding. If her surgery is delayed because of your tantrum and something happens to her, can you bear that responsibility? After I dropped that on her, if Chloe had any sense left, she'd know what to do. Transfer immediately. Or have my husband use his money and influence to fly in a team of specialists for an emergency procedure. It wouldn't be a problem. But Chloe, banking on her youth, was determined to fight me to the bitter end. Her surgery has nothing to do with me. You're just trying to avoid operating on me because your husband is in love with me. And just like that, she blurted out the affair. Gasps filled the hallway. This starlet had some serious nerve. But Chloe didn't care. She just wanted to use this opportunity to take me down and become the rightful Mrs. Sutton. Ignoring the looks of contempt and surprise from those around her, she attacked again. Aren't doctors supposed to be professional? Right now, I am first and foremost a patient. You can't refuse me. If you do, you're showing a reckless disregard for human life. Is that how she thinks that works? Trying to guilt-trip me? I almost laughed in her face. I put on my mask and started to walk away. I have to prep for surgery. I don't have time for your games. You should transfer, while you still can. Seeing that her tactics weren't working on me, Chloe turned to a frantic Mark, her voice dripping with pity. "Honey, it hurts so much. Please beg her for me. I only want her to do my surgery." The moment Mark's eyes met mine, he looked away, embarrassed and guilty. He never expected this to happen, not only running into me with his mistress, but having her demand I be her surgeon. But then he thought about how, after 5 years of marriage, I still hadn't gotten pregnant. He was convinced it was my fault. Chloe had already promised to give him children. He couldn't just stand by and watch her lose her uterus, leaving his family without an heir. Steeling himself, he looked at me, his eyes full of impatience. "Even if you're mad about me cheating, there's a limit. Chloe is in this state. As a doctor, your first duty is to save people. If you dare let her die, I'll divorce you." I laughed coldly to myself. This was the man I had loved for 5 years? At a critical moment, he was siding with Chloe, letting her torment me? But I wasn't afraid anymore. I could lose the house, the marriage, I didn't care. I'd already died once. Did he really think a man who betrayed me could sway my decisions now? I didn't turn back. I just threw a line over my shoulder. "Fine. Let's get a divorce. A bitch for a dog. You two deserve each other." Mark probably never imagined that the wife who had doted on him for years would ever talk back to him like this. He felt as if his family's prestigious name had been dragged through the mud. As he watched my retreating back, he knew he couldn't drag me away to confront me during work hours at the hospital. All he could do was fume with impotent rage. "Fine, a divorce it is. Don't you regret it?" I ignored him and walked into the sterilization room to start my work. Behind me, the heavy steel door slowly swung shut, closing off the outside world. At that moment, nothing else mattered. I was just a doctor. The only thing in my mind was my patient, and how to get her safely off the operating table. That was all that was important. Meanwhile, in the hospital corridor just outside, Chloe was still throwing a fit. "I don't care. I want her to do my surgery. If she doesn't agree, I'll die in your hospital today." At first, Mark tried to reason with her. "Chloe, she's already started another surgery. It'll be hours before she's out, and your body can't wait that long. Let me arrange a transfer." The public hospital 3 miles from here is top-notch. They'll get you through this safely. If Chloe hadn't insisted the ambulance bring her here after the crash, she would have been taken to the Level 1 trauma center closer to the accident site, not this high-end private hospital. The associate director was also afraid Chloe's stubbornness would cause a fatal delay, and the resulting media storm would be a disaster. He had to chime in. Yes, Miss Chloe, perhaps you should transfer. Dr. Albright has retired, and our other GYN specialist is on vacation. Besides Dr. Evans, the only other person available to perform your surgery is a Dr. Rogers, but she's more junior. To be safe, I also recommend an immediate transfer. But Chloe wasn't listening. Her mind was completely fixed on becoming the next Mrs. Sutton. She even asked the associate director, "How long until her surgery is over?" "I'm willing to wait." Seeing how insistent she was, the associate director had her moved to a room for a full workup while someone called the OR to ask a nurse. The answer came back quickly. Could be an hour or 2, could be 7 or 8. If Chloe had listened to reason then, she might have saved her uterus. But she was stubborn. "I'll wait for her. Get me scheduled for her next surgery and start the pre-op." With that, a pale-faced Chloe, with the help of a nurse, began getting prepped and changing into a hospital gown. The associate director and Mark were ushered out of the room. Fearing the worst, Mark even called his secretary. "Get the most reputable, available specialists from every nearby hospital over here right now. Money is no object." Chloe heard him from inside and screamed, "No, I want Dr. Evans. Don't you dare call anyone else, or I'll break up with you." Mark had no choice but to back down. And so Chloe waited, pale and on oxygen, even finding a moment to record a quick video for her fans. Half an hour later, a pool of blood suddenly gushed out from under her. The surgery was over 5 hours later. Looking at the finally sutured wound, I handed the hemostat to my assistant, my forehead beaded with sweat. "The rest is up to you." I stepped back and leaned against the wall to rest, my body slumping. I had been standing for too long, and the intense focus had left me completely drained. A nurse nearby asked with concern, "Are you okay?" Wiping the sweat from my brow, I nodded. Just like in my past life, the patient started hemorrhaging halfway through the surgery. Fortunately, I was prepared this time and pulled off a miraculous recovery, saving her life. We had to remove one of her fallopian tubes, and the blood loss was significant, but after a good recovery, she would still have a chance to have children. As I left the OR and walked down the long corridor, even with all the doors tightly shut, I thought I heard Chloe's cries of pain. It was probably just a hallucination from the stress. For a second, I felt like I was back in my past life, right after I had finished Chloe's surgery. Back then, I hadn't held a grudge or kicked her while she was down, despite her affair with my husband. I just hoped that once she recovered, she would stay out of our lives. But she repaid my kindness with betrayal, destroying everything I had, all for a man. In my past life, when I took that scalpel to my own artery, my hand was trembling. How hopeless I must have felt. The heavy steel door slowly opened in front of me. Mark, waiting outside, thought it was Chloe being wheeled out. He rushed over to me. "Doctor, how is Chloe?" When he looked up and saw my exhausted face, he was speechless. I frowned. "She didn't transfer? She let Nina Rogers operate on her?" I had specifically told Mark before that Nina was an incompetent doctor who got her job through connections. Yet he still allowed her to operate on Chloe. It seemed he didn't love Chloe as much as I thought. He was practically gambling with her life. Mark clearly understood my implication. He said, his face etched with worry, "I didn't want to, but there was no time. She was in critical condition. Chloe wasn't my patient now. Her condition had nothing to do with me." Exhausted as I was, I had no interest in discussing his mistress. I turned and headed for my office. I was so hungry I could barely see straight, and all I wanted was to eat something and refuel. An idea struck me. I pulled out my phone, turned on the front-facing camera, hit record, and hid it on a nearby bookshelf, pointed at myself. I held up my trembling hands for the camera. Just finished a 5-hour surgery. My hands barely feel like my own. Then I expertly pulled a pack of crackers from my drawer and started gulping them down with a cup of cold water. My colleague at the next desk saw me and looked confused. Are you recording a video or live streaming? You know streaming isn't allowed in the hospital. I put a finger to my lips with a knowing smile. Just a video. You'll see what it's for later. As I ate, I began writing up my surgical notes. Suddenly, with a bang, Mark threw the door open without knocking. His eyes were bloodshot as he grabbed my arm. Chloe's in danger. The hospital has approved you to join the surgery. You have to go save her. I knew she wouldn't let me off the hook that easily. She's in danger, so now I'm supposed to step in? The associate director was just trying to make me take the fall for Nina's mistake. Chloe would be thrilled, of course, but I had no intention of letting my career be destroyed again. I held up my shaking hands. I'm afraid I can't help. I need at least an hour to recover. Use your money and get an expert team from outside. Seeing my hands, Mark's voice grew hoarse. The specialists I called won't get here in time. She might not make it. If anything happens to her, I will not let you off the hook. I found that funny. I looked up at him coldly. What does that have to do with me? I'm not her attending physician, nor was I involved in her treatment. The accident happened because she was getting a little too wild with you in the car, which distracted the driver and made him crash. What does that have to do with me? Did I tell you to fool around in a moving car? Was I driving? There was a better, closer level 1 trauma center right near the crash site, but she insisted on coming all the way out here to have me, the wife, perform her surgery. Don't make your malicious intentions so obvious. Mark was stunned into silence. He knew it was all true. He just hadn't expected me to know about him and Chloe fooling around in the car. After a long moment, he looked away guiltily. Sarah, you misunderstood. I wasn't doing anything with her in the car, and our relationship isn't what you think. We can talk about this when we get home. With that, he hurriedly left my office. My colleague, who had witnessed the whole thing, gave me a thumbs up. You're like a fortune teller. I gave a bitter smile. More like once bitten, twice shy. It was only after I died in my past life and my ghost floated back to our apartment that I overheard Mark and Chloe arguing and learned the disgusting truth behind her car accident. After resting for exactly an hour, my second scheduled surgery of the day was ready. As I passed through the fingerprint scanner locked doors into the surgical wing, I happened to see Chloe, vomiting uncontrollably, being wheeled out of a nearby OR. Besides Nina, a specialist who had arrived later was with her, though he'd gotten there too late to assist with the surgery. When Chloe saw me, her eyes were filled with venom. She opened her mouth to curse at me, but she was so weak from blood loss that she just dry heaved again, her face a terrifying shade of pale. When I got back to my office after my second surgery, Nina was already there waiting for me. She shot me a triumphant smile. The surgery was a success. Didn't expect that, did you? Miss Chloe has promised to do more promotion for our hospital. I'm going to be the hospital's new star. The department head position is definitely mine. Her? Department head? In my past life, if the associate director and Chloe hadn't conspired against me, that title would have been mine. It seemed that in this life, the two of them had teamed up again. But I wasn't afraid. This time I hadn't touched Chloe's surgery. Whether she did well or not had no impact on me. Moreover, because my first surgery of the day, the ectopic pregnancy, was so successful, the patient's family was thrilled and wanted to send a formal commendation. Now all the medical staff on this floor were saying I had the best reputation. My promotion was what everyone wanted. At 6 p.m., when I finally took off my white coat and left the hospital, I felt an incredible sense of relief. The hellish day was finally almost over. When I got home, Mark wasn't back yet. He was probably still at the hospital with his precious Chloe. In the corner, the roses celebrating our 5th anniversary were still in their vase. It was a pathetic sight. I pulled them out and tossed them straight into the trash. Then, I contacted a divorce lawyer through a friend. After explaining my situation, he said he would draft the divorce agreement as soon as possible. This divorce was happening. I wasn't just talking. Mark didn't get home until late that night. Exhausted, he walked into the master bedroom, planning to smooth things over with me and put the whole affair behind us. Instead, he found all my belongings packed up and stacked in a corner. I had moved into the guest room and even locked the door. Sarah, open the door. We need to talk, he said, knocking patiently. You can talk to my lawyer tomorrow. After that, no matter how much he knocked, I ignored him. It was late, and I needed to sleep. A busy day at work was waiting for me. Once I decided on divorce, I didn't want to think about anything else, not our past, not his betrayal. Compared to death, these were trivial matters. Now my future was bright. I hadn't been disowned, I wasn't depressed, and I was confident and full of life. I slept soundly until morning. Mark, on the other hand, didn't sleep a wink. One moment he was worried about the truth of Chloe's accident leaking online and ruining his image as a respectable businessman. The next he was fretting about whether her surgery would affect her fertility. And then he was panicking that I was serious about the divorce and would take a huge chunk of his assets. In the morning, after my routine run on the treadmill, I sat down at the table to enjoy my breakfast. Mark finally got up, dark circles under his eyes, and sat across from me. He rubbed his temples, looking at the packed boxes in the living room. Are you really going to divorce me? I was just angry yesterday. I smiled, looking at him like he was garbage. Yes, we're getting a divorce. I've already had the papers drawn up. They'll be delivered to your office this morning. Sign them, and we can go our separate ways amicably. Mark finally panicked. It wasn't that he couldn't bear to part with me. He wouldn't have cheated if that were the case. He was afraid of me taking my share of the marital assets. As long as we were married, he could keep them. He softened his tone and reached for my hand. Sarah, please just forgive me this once. As for Chloe, if she has a baby, I'll bring it home for you to raise. I won't marry her. You're the wife. You'll always be the real Mrs. Sutton. Why should I tolerate my husband cheating and having a child with someone else? Raising my husband's mistress's child? What kind of twisted gift is that? I felt disgusted. I pulled my hand back and wiped it vigorously on a napkin. No thanks. You two can raise as many as you want. The movers will be here soon. Here's the key. The next time we see each other will be at the courthouse. I threw the key onto the table, grabbed my purse, and walked out of that house, ignoring his pleas. I had already told my family, even the elders, about the divorce. After a quick family conference call last night, and after I threatened to cut ties, they finally stopped trying to patch things up between Mark and me and agreed to the divorce. Marriage is the union of two families, and divorce is their separation. The business ties between our families might not be severed completely right away, but our future collaborations would never be as close. Once the elders were informed, there was no turning back. Whether Mark agreed or not, this divorce was happening. Mark didn't put up much of a fight. He believed that our 5 years without children was my fault, and I was only asking for what I was legally entitled to. Wanting to ensure his future children could inherit his wealth without issue, he gritted his teeth and agreed. The next morning, I took the day off, and we went to the county clerk's office. In 30 days, when the waiting period ended, we would be completely done. As we walked out, Mark sneered, "You can't have children. Without me, you're nothing." I laughed. "Without you, I'm Dr. Evans, and I'm also Sarah Evans. I have a degree and a good background. I can do just fine on my own. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with my fertility. I looked at our premarital health reports from 5 years ago. You were too busy to see them then. I kept them for you in the bottom drawer of the safe. You should take a look when you have a minute." Mark's face fell. "What are you talking about? How could I be?" I didn't answer. I just hailed a cab and left. Between the two of us, he was the infertile one. His unhealthy lifestyle had led to azoospermia, a zero sperm count, the incurable kind. I'd known about it since our premarital checkup 5 years ago. I didn't tell him because I didn't want to hurt his pride, and besides, I hadn't planned on having kids within the first 5 years anyway. I figured he would eventually find the report himself. I never imagined it would become his excuse for cheating. The irony was suffocating. When I got back to the hospital, the way my colleagues looked at me was strange. Had Chloe started another online smear campaign against me? Back in my office, I immediately asked my colleague Jenna, "What's with everyone?" Jenna whispered, "For the past few days, to build up Nina's reputation and suppress yours, Chloe has been bragging to her followers in live streams about how amazing Nina's surgical skills are. Chloe's been having occasional abdominal pain, but as her attending physician, Nina just dismissed it as a normal post-op symptom. But today Chloe started screaming in agony. A scan revealed that something went wrong with the surgery. It's infected and festering, and she might need a hysterectomy. Nina has already been suspended, and a malpractice investigation is about to start. The associate director will probably be held jointly responsible. And Chloe is once again demanding that you perform the next surgery. She says she'll wait as long as it takes. So she wouldn't rest until she dragged me down with her. I hadn't wanted to make this personal, but since she kept coming after me, it would be rude not to return the favor. During my lunch break, I called a friend who runs a media company and asked for a small favor. Half an hour later, a TMZ-like site dropped a bombshell. A list starlet Chloe caught an affair with married heir. The video of Mark carrying Chloe into the hospital, the clip of Chloe demanding I perform her surgery, the recording of my confrontation with Mark in my office, photos of Mark and me at the courthouse, it was all there. They even had roadside surveillance footage from the day of the accident showing the two of them, disheveled, climbing out of the car. The evidence was ironclad, leaving them no room for denial. The internet exploded. Everyone rushed to get in on the drama. By the time Chloe and Mark tried to do damage control, it was already too late. Mark didn't have a social media presence, but Chloe did. Her account with 5 million followers was instantly flooded with furious comments from a public that felt duped. Chloe is toxic. Going to the wife's hospital after the crash? Was she trying to rub it in her face? How dare she demand the wife perform her surgery? I see exactly what she was trying to do. I used to feel sorry for her because of the accident. Now I just feel sorry for myself for being such a bad judge of character. Chloe deserved that car crash. So much for her innocent little flower persona, doing that in a car. Cancel Chloe. We can't let people like her corrupt public morals. I feel so bad for the wife. What did she ever do to deserve this? She almost lost her career over their scheming. Seeing the flood of negative comments and the stock for his family's company, Stratton Corporation, plummeting, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. As soon as Mark found out, he called me. I didn't answer, just rejected the call. If I didn't need to see him again to finalize the divorce, I would have blocked his number. He resorted to texting me. Sarah, I know you did this. Take it out on me if you're angry, but please leave her alone. She's been through enough. I replied. She came after me first. She's still trying to force me into another surgery. Can't she live without trying to frame me? Mark thought for a moment, then switched tactics. Sarah, if you agree to let her off the hook and clarify online that those rumors are false, I'll give you an extra $10 million in the divorce settlement. How about it? He was completely missing the point. If I were you, my first move would be to issue a public apology and try to minimize the damage to the company, not try to buy my silence. But Mark couldn't bring himself to bow his precious head and admit he'd made a mistake. He texted back. How about $20 million? If you deny the rumors about our marriage, it will stabilize the company's stock, and Chloe will get through this. I replied quickly, no deal. If you really care about Chloe, tell her to transfer to another hospital and stop harassing me. If she saves her uterus, she can still have kids. Your azoospermia doesn't have to be an issue. She can use a sperm donor. The baby won't be yours, but hey, at least your wife will be. I took a screenshot and sent it straight to our family group chat for everyone to see Mark's disgusting true colors. My mother-in-law was the first to react in the chat. Azoospermia? My son? How could my son have azoospermia? Her world came crashing down. My parents both said Mark got what he deserved, and then left the group chat. Since I was divorcing him, our families were no longer connected. One by one, all the relatives from my side of the family left the group. Mark's aunts and uncles all chimed in, offering their 2 cents. One offered to have her grandson be adopted by Mark, clearly eyeing his inheritance. Another offered to introduce him to a woman who would have a baby via a donor, just adding fuel to the fire. Someone else told him not to get divorced and to work things out with me, saying he was in no position to be causing so much trouble. Their meddling mouths drove Mark half mad with rage. The more I read, the more satisfied I felt. After enjoying the show, I left the group, and the world was quiet again. That afternoon, Mark had someone handle Chloe's transfer papers. He was probably afraid she'd provoke me again and cause an even bigger scandal. Mark and I had less contact, but I'd always been close with his cousin. She secretly filled me in on a lot of the fallout. For instance, because of the infertility scandal and the hit to the company's stock, Mark's father removed him from the line of succession. He was demoted to managing a branch office in some backwater town. His high-limit credit cards were canceled, and from then on he had to survive on a meager salary. After being blacklisted from the entertainment industry, Chloe faced massive lawsuits for breach of contract. Once Mark's money dried up, she couldn't even afford her medical bills. Not long after, the infection became so severe that she was forced to have a hysterectomy at a small clinic, ending her chances of ever having children. You'd think two people who couldn't have kids would find solace in each other. But instead, Mark resented Chloe for not even having a uterus and fought with her constantly. Chloe couldn't take it anymore. One night, she ended her debt-ridden life by jumping off a building. She died on the exact day our divorce waiting period ended. Mark never showed up at the courthouse, even though I waited for him all day. I knew he hated me. He wanted to trap me in the marriage. If his life was miserable, he wanted to make sure mine was too, preventing me from ever remarrying. But I had no intention of ever remarrying anyway. I had been promoted to department head. I was successful. I had my looks. Why would I ever want to step back into the tomb of marriage? If he wanted to drag it out, let him. I could file for divorce based on separation. It would just take a couple more years. During those 2 years, I went abroad, and through a sperm donor, I successfully conceived and gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. When Mark found out I had a daughter, he finally gave in and agreed to the divorce. He knew his stubbornness couldn't change anything anymore. All it would do was make him the legal father to a child that wasn't his. The day we went to the courthouse to finalize everything, Mark looked much older. When he held the divorce certificate, for the first time, he expressed regret for his choices. I regret it. If only I hadn't cheated. I scoffed. If I were the one who died a horrible death today and Chloe was the victor, would you still regret it? You don't regret what you did. You just regret that you lost. I didn't need his regret. All I needed was for him to live out the rest of his life in misery, with no hope for the future, until he finally withered away.